I've spent a lot of time driving GT3 cars in RENNSPORT, and I've gotten pretty comfortable with it. But this is the BMW M Hybrid, and every time I get into this thing, I feel like I need to completely recalibrate my brain. The braking's different, the cornering's different, and the speed is ridiculous. And on a controller, every little mistake seems to happen about twice as fast. So rather than giving you some supposedly perfect setup, today, I'm going to try to actually figure the car out. I think my first problem is actually pretty simple. I'm trying to drive this like a faster BMW M4, and it just isn't. In the GT3 car, I'm used to braking, rotating the car, getting it settled, and then progressively getting back to the throttle. The Hybrid V8 wants some of that same discipline, but everything happens at a completely different speed. And because this car generates so much downforce, the faster you're going, the more grip you actually have, which creates this really strange sensation where some of the corners that look terrifying are actually easier than some of the slower ones. Braking was the first thing I had to work on. My instinct was basically hypercar, massive brakes. Hit the brakes as hard as possible. And initially that works, but as the speed comes down, I can't just keep holding that same brake pressure. I'm finding I need a really aggressive initial hit and then a much more deliberate release as I approach the corner. Basically, trail braking matters even more here. And if I stay on the brakes too hard for too long, the car just won't rotate. And if I dump the brakes too early, I lose the weight over the front and I get severe understeer. So I'm trying to make the brake trigger one continuous movement. Hard initial braking, progressive release, then use that last bit of brake pressure to help point the car toward the apex. And on a controller, that's probably the biggest adjustment I've had to make so far. And then there's the exact opposite problem. I need to stop slowing the car down too much. This car has aerodynamic grip that I'm just not used to trusting, so I'll approach a fast corner, and my GT3 brain tells me there's absolutely no way this is going to stick. So I lift, the front unloads, and suddenly I've actually made the car worse. That's probably been the biggest revelation. There are places where the solution isn't more setup, it's just trusting the car. A small lift instead of a big lift, a brush of the brake instead of actually braking, and sometimes just staying in it. And that's going to take some retraining. But then you arrive at a slow corner, and suddenly all that magical aerodynamic grip disappears. This is where I've been getting myself into a lot of trouble. I carried too much speed into the corner because the car felt incredible 5 seconds ago. Then I'm asking it to rotate at low speed where there's much less downforce helping me, and I get understeer. And then I get impatient, and then I hit the throttle. And now the rear wants to come around. So the slow corners actually need more patience than I expected. Get the braking done, rotate the car, and don't rush the throttle. And especially on a controller, don't try to fix a bad corner by adding more steering. That's just going to make things worse. Now that I have a better idea of what I'm fighting, I'm finally willing to touch the setup. But I'm not changing 15 things all at once. I want to know what each adjustment's actually doing to this particular car. So first, I want a little more front end response in the slower corners. Second, I want the rear stable enough that I can confidently start feeding the power back in. And third, I don't want to destroy the high speed balance that makes the car so good in the first place. So I'll make small changes one at a time, and then I'm going to go straight back onto the circuit and see what it does. Because changing 5 settings and magically going half a second faster doesn't actually teach me anything about the car. And now it's starting to make sense. I'm braking hard while the car still has speed, releasing the brake as the downforce comes away, and using that release to rotate the car. I'm carrying more speed through the fast stuff, and I'm actually going slower into some of the slow corners, which is letting me get out of them much faster. And that's the weird part. The car feels calmer, almost boring, but the lap is faster, and that's usually a pretty good indication that you're finally starting to understand what the car wants to do. So, if you're coming from GT3 cars like I am, my three biggest lessons with the BMW are pretty straightforward. Trust the aero in the fast corners, spend more time thinking about how you're releasing the brake instead of just where you're braking, and in the slow stuff, be patient, because this car will absolutely punish you for trying to force it. I'm definitely not finished with this car. Actually, I think I'm just getting started. Now that I understand it a little bit better, the next step's going to be building the proper setup around the way I'm actually driving. And that's what we'll do next. We'll take the M4 Hybrid and we'll start changing the setup one section at a time to see how much faster we can actually make it. Because eventually, I want to be able to properly race this thing, not just survive it.